Sekeres Price for Thursday, February 22nd, 2024, coming to you from the Go-Goat Sports Studio, built by Arbor Lee, here at the iconic Wall Center, downtown Vancouver, where if you're looking to make it a staycation after a trip into downtown, maybe even for a game, call the Wall, 604-331-1000. Ask for the Sekeres Price rates, some blackout dates apply. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price, Grady Sass hitting switches, conducting things with Madison Buckingham. Big show coming up, all brought to you by Applewood Auto Group.
Yeah, and Applewood Kia in Langley's got the Kia Niro EVs and EV6s with complimentary EV chargers, or if you'd rather, complimentary set of winter tires, courtesy of Kia Canada. Go check it all out at Applewood Kia in Langley. It is all good at Applewood.
With a gleam in our eye and a shout out to Big Daddy Dave Pratt, we are asking on the poll question today: is tonight a must win? Yes or no, voting at Sekeres Price on Twitter and YouTube. I'm not sure I'm going to get this poll question out with a straight face today, Blake.
If they lose this game, they miss the playoffs. Is that correct?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Or it will be such an impossible uphill battle.
The spiral.
No, we used to tease our friend Dave Pratt back in the old radio days that he was always the first to drop must win in a Vancouver Canucks season. And look, of course the answer is no, or at least it is for me. The respondents to the poll are quite split on this, believe it or not. So 3 losses in the first 3-game losing streak of the season, the last NHL team to have one. That is something the market can abide. It cannot abide another loss, a 4th consecutive, especially to the interlopers, the Johnny-come-latelys, down the I-5 in Seattle.
I'm not taking it in the literal context. I'm taking it in the proverbial context. And so in that context, yes, it is. My God. And the reason I'm saying that is the schedule ahead. It is murderer's row of teams. It doesn't get any easier.
What are you talking about?
What do you mean?
It's Pittsburgh and LA next week. It's not a murderer's row. One team is almost
the Bruins
out of
immediately, first of all.
But Pittsburgh is almost out of the Eastern Conference playoff race, and LA is on a wild card in the West.
Yeah, and both of them are finding their legs a little bit. Following that, they've got a week of LA, Vegas, and Winnipeg. Following that, the Colorado Avalanche.
That's a murderer's row.
Right. Well, I didn't say how far the row was. You assumed it was a 3-team row. I was talking more about an 8-team row.
Okay. I just hope there's some moral victories in there.
Murderer's row was a reference to what? Baseball team. 9 guys in the batting order. Next 9 teams, pretty tough.
I think even before that, it was a prison reference.
Well, you would think there was a literal translation. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
you're voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
Grady, what are you voting?
No.
Yes.
Of course it's
Thank you. Thank you.
They should win.
But again, you guys are not taking it in the fun context. You're taking it in the literal context. And
so we're no fun.
You're no fun. Yes, correct.
Okay. Dad's scolding us, Grady.
Well, of course it's not a mathematical must win. They're in first place. You got a winky emoji written in the damn
that's the
poll
thing.
question.
The amount of people that think this is a serious poll, like, come on. You see the Dave Pratt name and the wink.
But there is the proverbial must win, to which Dave Pratt was always referencing, because of course you're not mathematically eliminated in October either. It is effectively saying, do they need this win to make sure they don't bleed out? And the answer to me is, yeah, you got to risk there. Get the win versus this team, a local rivalry you don't want to think has got any steam over you, lest you face them in the first round of the playoffs.
Seattle is 3 back of the final playoff spot in the West, 3 teams to jump. They do have a game in hand on Minnesota and Nashville, who are immediately above them in the standings. Same number of games as St. Louis, who are sitting on that final playoff spot. So the one thing that I will agree with you on this schedule is what we have been talking about for a couple of weeks now, is outside of these games against the better teams in the NHL, Colorado, Boston, of course, Winnipeg, and Vegas, the Canucks also have peppered in this schedule a bunch of games against playoff desperate clubs. We saw that last weekend against Detroit and Washington. Then again, Detroit coming here. We saw that earlier in the week with Minnesota. And we're going to see that with Seattle tonight Pittsburgh and Los Angeles next week here at Rogers Arena as we get towards the March 8th playoff trade deadline. And of course, teams having to make some, in some cases, very difficult decisions. Are you in? Are you out? Are you selling? Are you buying? Are you standing pat? All right, let's get to today's top story, and that is the skid. 4 points up on Dallas in the Western Conference right now. That's for the number 1 overall seed. And as we've talked about, that could be important. I mean, LA has sort of slid back to the wild card pack. I'm not sure if you draw a big distinction between the LA Kings, who have won 4 in a row, and the rest of the playoff pack. Needless to say, there's some potentially delicious first-round matchups there for the Vancouver Canucks in the 1-8 part of the Western Conference bracket. Could be these Kraken, in which case rivalry, Cascadia rivalry, game on. Could be the old foe Calgary Flames if they get things together. So 4 up on Dallas, who has a game in hand. Dallas and Ottawa on Thursday night. So a pretty good chance of victory, one would think, for the Stars. They're 10 points up on Vegas in the Pacific. The Golden Knights with 2 games in hand. And they host the Red Hot Toronto Maple Leafs here on Thursday, where Austin Matthews is up to 51 goals.
He just keeps scoring. It's unbelievable. And that snuck up on me. Like if
he had 2 hat tricks last week. I think he's got 8 goals over the last week.
So we weren't really in 50 and 50 watch.
No.
But then all of a sudden he came darn close to it.
Really, really close.
So yeah,
he's on pace for like 75 plus goals. I mean, there have been very few.
He could get 60 and 60.
Yeah, he could. I mean, the hot streak would have to continue, but you're right. That would be something else. But the Canucks fans can turn into Leaf fans for a moment.
And the Canucks are 12 up on the Edmonton Oilers, which sounds like a lot. Edmonton with 5 games in hand. We all took in some of that Edmonton-Boston game last night, and it was I mean, that was Edmonton-Vegas last week, Edmonton-Boston Wednesday night. Like, that's what the best of this league looks like, right? Like, those were terrific games with great players on both sides.
Edmonton's a fun team because they are so imperfect still. They are still imperfect. Like, I don't know that they're capable, even in the playoffs, of winning a 3-1 game match. Like, I don't think it's going to happen.
Honestly, Colorado Vancouver on Tuesday also had that sort of look to it, just a lower score. Didn't light up the board like Edmonton and Boston did on Wednesday evening. So Edmonton 5 games in hand, 12 back. The Canucks are playing tonight, Thursday. Edmonton is not, so they will have 6 games in hand at the end of proceedings. And if the Canucks were to lose tonight, then Edmonton could pull into a heat if they won all 6. Now, there's not a lot of teams in the league that I'd look at and go, oh, yeah, but 6-game winning streaks. Well, based on what Edmonton has done this year with a 17-gamer, I think you have to allow for that possibility. Highly unlikely, but allow for the possibility that the Oilers are still in the Pacific hunt for number 1. Of course, for that to happen, the Canucks would have to continue losing here.
The Canucks give back some games next week. They only play twice next week, so they do have to watch a lot of action next week and see people try to catch up. Best put points in the bank before you do that.
Well, and we were just looking at the schedule, 11 games in the National Hockey League on Thursday, and you're at that time of year where there's a lot of meat on the bone in these games. Detroit needs to keep winning. They got Colorado in town, Devils with a rivalry game against the Rangers chasing a playoff spot, Habs and Pittsburgh, Tampa and Washington, both of those teams hovering around the playoff bar. And then, of course, the Kraken here, Calgary hosting Boston, and the Islanders Blues, which is a non-conference game, but of course both of those teams are quite desperate. More on the Blues here in a second.
And maybe this will be a poll question at some point. When do you think Canuck fans will exhale this season? And maybe they never will. Maybe not until the season is fully over, and I mean playoffs. But when do you think they'll exhale and be like, okay, we know we're in? Because even if you get the X beside your name, but you're at 94 points, like you've still not really accomplished much there. Is it at the 100-point barrier? Do you think most people will exhale?
Maybe not till first place is wrapped up. If first place is wrapped up.
Yeah, maybe that's the exhale. Because that if you slip out of first place, you've got a hell of a first round match.
Yeah, you do. Well, I mean, you're playing Edmonton or Vegas if you slip out of first
And
place.
who's signing up for that?
How about this? Arshdeep Bains off his National Hockey League debut Tuesday, where he had 2 scoring chances himself. He created 2 scoring chances for Teddy Bluger. Skates with JT Miller and Brock Besser at Climate Pledge, the morning skate. Pius Suter down in that left wing role on the third line with Teddy Bluger and Connor Garland. Shout out Irf Gafar, who said to us on the show Wednesday that we could very well see Bains have upward mobility soon, that Suter was not entrenched on that line. And here we are. How about this for the kid?
It's a huge boost for him. Apparently JT Miller, I saw Ben Kuzma making reference to a Miller comment after the game that he was impressed by what Bains did. So there's a mutual admiration society, I'm sure, happening there. I think this is probably just a little cake test for the chemistry here. Like, I don't think he ever profiles as a top 6 NHL player. Not cheering against him though. I mean, I think this is a great opportunity for him to get his first National Hockey League goal. So I'll be cheering that on. But they haven't had. There was that one hat trick game for Pius Suter, obviously. But
they had a 3-assist night Monday, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, I guess in that game, Minnesota, that's a kind of a crazy game. Though.
Everybody sort of fattened up.
But what is the profile of winger that you want on that line with Besser and Miller? I don't know that we've necessarily been able to pigeonhole exactly what that player is.
Well, it was 3 assists Monday. I think it's a Di Giuseppe profile, just a better player than Di Giuseppe.
Right.
I mean, we were talking at the beginning of the year that Di Giuseppe does all the spade work, all the plumbing, goes and gets the puck for those 2 guys. And frankly, from what I saw of Arshdeep Bains in his NHL debut, he's got that game.
Wish he was in this role as a first liner.
He's not as big a body.
That's right. I wish he was a tad bigger, but he plays bigger than he is, I think. So we'll see.
It's just fun watching a new player, particularly
and the backstory.
The backstory here is just outrageously good. Jed Wu actually, and we'll get into this in a moment here. Recalled he was on the ice morning. He's not going to play them.
Not going to play. No.
Elias Lindholm is off power play 1 as it struggles. What is it, Grady? 3 for 29. Snapped an 0 for 20 streak against the Minnesota Wild, then came back out and went 0 for 2 against the Colorado Avalanche. So Lindholm is off power play 1 and going with the rare 2 defenseman look with Philip Hronek joining power play 1. And is that 2-point guys, or is that Hronek
I wonder
playing a little lower?
I think it's the opposite. I'm going to guess Hronek's up top shooting, and I'm guessing Hughes is a rover. And he's allowed to move.
No fixed position, just do as you please.
Well, I'm sure he has a fixed position, but they want him to use his elusiveness and mobility. And I think to me, what this feels like is a complete reaction to what we saw the other night, which was the Avs gave the Canucks time and space on the power play, but there was no shooting lane. There was just, and of course, Hughes' shot is not exactly a pain deterrent. He's improved his shot, but it's not exactly like, let's get out of the way of this. You're going to test some bravery getting in the way of Philip Hronek's shot. So to me, it's a reaction to that. To me, my first reaction would have been keep the personnel and just rotate them. But it's changed, and I think rather than keep on waiting for chemistry to click with the old formation, I think this was probably this is a step forward. I would have gone the other way, but it's something at the very least.
We expect Phil Di Giuseppe to be scratched and Sam Lafferty to get back into the lineup on that 4th line.
It's unclear if it's a healthy scratch for Di Giuseppe because he did not skate at all. Didn't make an appearance. So we'll see.
The roster moves mentioned that happened on Wednesday afternoon. So Dakota Joshua has been retroactively placed on IR. You can do this, backdate a player onto the injured reserve or the LTIR based on when they started missing games. Carson Soucy, in that vein, retroactively to LTIR. Jet Wu recalled. Now, the interesting part about these moves, Blake, is that this opens about $2.75 million, or it opens the Canucks cap up to a maximum of 2.75 in available space. Is it possible they are making some cap maneuvers here to add a salaried player?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong as well. By putting Dakota Joshua on IR as well, that opens up a roster spot.
Yes, a spot that was claimed by Wu.
But Susie, was he on IR before that? Or is that two roster spots opened up, is my point.
Give me a second.
Yeah, I don't know if that...
But, well, a couple of things. Number one, that they brought Wu up probably means they're at least a little concerned about somebody on the blue line. And then secondly, they have created some cap space here should they want to add a salary player via trade without subtracting from the lineup. Yeah, they are at the full complement of 23 players right now.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know that this Susie thing was bound to happen anyway, because you want to use that space if you can, going forward towards the trade deadline. So if he's gone 9 games, you might as well put him on there. Or know he's going to be gone 9 games, you might as well put him on there. I mean, who knows with Joshua too? I mean, in the blink of an eye, he'll be, on the downward slope towards LTIR as well, by the end of the week.
Yeah. Cause Dakota Joshua is going to miss his 4th game here against Seattle. Do I have that right? And then will be a 5th game.
Was he injured versus the Jets? Or was he fighting with?
He was injured against Mackenzie Entwistle in Chicago.
Right after the Garland hit.
This will be the 5th game that Joshua misses. Boston on Saturday presumably be the 6th game.
Yeah, so
that Joshua
he's already
misses.
Downhill towards LTIR as well. So unless he's starting to appear at practice, and I know he did a little twirl the other day with the mentors trip on, but unless he started, and I'm going to guess they want him to practice after missing a couple of weeks.
One would think, especially, I mean, it's a hand injury here. You got to be
testing the hand.
Yeah, exactly. You got to be sure that he can shoot and pass. And
so until we see him at practice, you'd think he's a week away, I would guess, and that's getting pretty close to getting some more dollars back. So we'll see.
We have chronicled it from the start. This is kind of the geographic rivalry that has failed to launch for the Vancouver Canucks. The build-up to the Seattle Kraken franchise, the 32nd franchise in the NHL, was all about getting the Canucks finally, at last, that natural geographic rival that, of course, their foes in Alberta have always had between them, not to mention others around the National Hockey League, just down the coast with LA and Anaheim in the same neck of the woods. Well, between a really beige expansion season for Seattle, where they just weren't all that interesting.
No.
And Nadia, Seattle Kraken fan, coming to the rescue of Brian Red Hamilton, Canucks assistant equipment manager, and noticing a mole on the back of his neck that turned out to be cancerous. He got checked out, got it removed, and may well have saved his life.
And then they were good, and the Canucks were horrific.
Exactly. The rivalry got a little stoked U.S. Thanksgiving weekend. The Canucks were down there on the Friday, got a big 5-1 win. At that point of the season, Canucks fans were already starting to feel pretty good about their team. A lot of winning had gone on to that point and continues to go on. And, of course, Vancouver was avenging a loss the previous week to the Kraken here at Rogers Arena. I suspect there'll be some Canucks fans in attendance down the I-5 today. So who knows? This could be the second building block to finally this Cascadia I-5 rivalry that we have been awaiting. Now, we do know it's going to take a playoff series to really crank up the gas on this rivalry, but tonight has some possibilities, particularly with the Canucks in a slump and probably feeling a little ornery about their lot.
And just in case they do face each other in the first round of the playoffs, wouldn't it be great to have a memorable game here as well? And there's another one coming up, but it'd be nice to see a bit of a preview for the playoff series by having some memorable games here. And of course, the Kraken have got the radio stations there might be running the must-win poll question as well, podcast there, because it's a big game for them. So we'll see. There should be some desperation there. They hate Tyler Myers for a couple of hits that he's had. So maybe Tyler Myers will be public enemy number one here. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's an odd take for us here in Vancouver to see Tyler Myers as a bad guy anywhere. But
Mild-mannered Tyler Myers.
Yes, but they hate him there for some reason. So keep your eyes open for that storyline as well. But it would be nice if there was a chippy playoff kind of game.
Yeah, Tyler Myers is almost hated as much as a 49er in Seattle.
It's true. Yeah.
He's on the enemies list.
Or Portland Timber. Yeah.
Yeah, he's on the enemies list. Bo Jackson, some of those old Lakers, guys who have gotten over on Seattle sports teams. All right. So that's the rivalry. Here's the other thing. Canucks need a win on the Dads trip. The Dads have seen a couple losses here, including blowing a 3-goal lead in Minnesota and not being able to get over the Colorado Avalanche. So this is the last chance to win for Dad.
And I would
always want to win for Dad.
I would guess that means something to them. Like,
oh, for sure.
You go through the trouble, and this is the first one in a while.
You don't want to disappoint Dad.
Don't want to disappoint Dad ever. Never.
This one can attest.
Kids, are you listening? You don't ever want to.
You're such a great dad.
Or else, what happens, Blake?
Exactly.
You know what happened last night in the Price family household? Mrs. Price went to the Madonna concert. Blake toured around the kids to hockey and then stopped at Mickey D's on the way home because that's what dads do when mom's away. Right? Dad, can we eat the most unhealthy food going? Absolutely, kids. Your mother's at a concert.
I felt a little bit bad.
Blake inhaled a QP and
not a double, though. Disappointing.
Everyone was happy.
Then I went home and ate leftover sushi as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Craig J. Button releases his list of top 50 NHL affiliated prospects, and there is very good Vancouver Canuck content in the top 10. Tom Wielander, number 9 overall, according to Craig. NHL affiliated prospects. Remember, this is not including the draft class of 2024, nor is it including young players who are entrenched on NHL rosters. Jonathan Lekramaki comes in at number 10. So that's pretty good altitude.
Yeah,
and of course, both of those guys have built on their prospect status this season. Lekramaki is the World Junior MVP, having a heck of a season against men over in Sweden. And Wielander at Boston University, the rare Swede to come over play NCAA hockey, has often been on a pair with fellow Canuck draft pick Aiden Celebrini.
On the second pair, mostly right now.
For a highly ranked Boston University Terriers team.
Who's got UConn this weekend.
Also wanted to get to this, because this is a name I know some Canucks fans have been looking at. Now, granted, more before the acquisition of Elias Lindholm, but TSN's Darren Dreger expects that Pavel Buchnevich will be traded by the St. Louis Blues. And, I read Jeremy Rutherford's piece in The Athletic. He's less sure that Buchnevich is going to be traded by March 8th. But Doug Armstrong, the GM there, has seemingly been messaging a path forward for some time. They do want to do what the Canucks tried to do and mostly failed at, and that is retool and be competitive along the way. So it's not going to be a full teardown in St. Louis. They are on a playoff spot, as we say, and heck, they added 3 first-round picks last year to their prospect pool. But Buchnevich available as a UFA after next season, so an acquiring team would have him for presumably 2 Stanley Cup playoff runs, $5.8 million.
Ooh, it's good value
on the cap.
He's a point per game player the last 2 seasons, folks.
He's 43 points in 53 games this year, and he is one of 4 St. Louis Blues at 19 goals. They got a hell of a derby going on for the team lead in goals. Buchnevich, Thomas Kyrou, and Neighbors. Playing almost 20 minutes a night, has played the middle a little bit, 6'3", 200 there. So an interesting name trade deadline wise. And also, I mean, we've also talked about this, Blake. There are a couple of teams in the West, at least 2, maybe more, St. Louis and Nashville, who, maybe you make the playoffs as a wild card this year, but seem to have a greater plan afoot in Nashville under new general manager Barry Trotz, and in St. Louis, where, of course, Doug Armstrong knows what it takes to win a Stanley Cup, having won in 2019. So you just wonder whether, first of all, I don't think you're going to see those teams buying, and I'm not even sure Minnesota, Seattle, or heaven forbid Calgary are going to be buyers. It might just be a whole bunch of teams standing pat, and we'll see who winds up getting to the playoffs in the West. There, you could see a scenario where some of these teams, Calgary in particular, are more likely to sell assets than acquire assets before March 8th.
I'm just looking at the Nashville roster. There are not many young players on that team.
No.
Like they are desperate to get younger. And probably acquire a few more assets as well, but
and Saros is the big name there.
And so if you get into the playoffs, it's a great experience for those young players that you have, but you're not dying to necessarily, right? Like you're probably not winning the cup, and it's not helping you in draft position, so you might as well consider selling for sure. And the Blues are in the same kind of boat. The
other matter I wanted to address, just because we had it on yesterday's show. So Jack Eichel goes to LTIR for the Vegas Golden Knights. Kelly McCrimmon, their general manager, did a podcast yesterday with Jimmy Murphy and Pierre Maguire in Boston, and he said, "Oh yeah, Eichel should be back soon, but in case you were worried about their LTIR cushion, Blake, and their ability to add for Mark Stone's going to be out for a while now."
Yeah. Right on cue.
Right. So you circle Eichel in, and now we're going to miss Mark Stone, and he'll probably head to LTIR, and you get that bump.
I mean, I can't believe that Mark Stone would be gone for 7 weeks, though. I mean, we're still ways away from the playoffs here. This is not like an April 4th end of the season like the old days here. So, I mean, I can't believe he's be gone for 7 weeks. Nor would he want to be gone for 7 weeks.
No, he's sure he'll be back at some point. It just seems Vegas has a lot of injuries, seemingly every year, and just seems like they're able to take advantage of those injuries.
I hope for your sake that the Canucks do cross paths eventually with the Vegas Golden Knights in the playoffs, so that you can exercise your ABV demons.
Honestly, I don't really, I don't cheer for any individual team. I cheer for stories. I cheer for things that help our lives, our shows. I would absolutely be cheering Canucks against that franchise.
This season is different while we're on that topic. Like, I find myself kind of cheering for the Canucks because I cheer for all you folks. Well, I want all you folks to have a different storyline.
I was certainly in the Canucks corner earlier in the season because I just could not bear another losing season, especially a season that goes off the rails by Remembrance Day.
Yeah.
Positive Canucks.
I just couldn't have that.
Well,
we
done.
Can't have that. The market, the fan base could not have had that again.
Yeah.
So it's what's made this season so delightful is they've not only surprised us with the early winning, but they've just kept winning.
10 years of bleep hockey.
Let's get to today's menu. It's brought to you by Greta. Last chance, last call. We'll be there this evening, Thursday night, watch party, doors at 6. You get your tickets on site or at nationgear.ca. They're $10. Be giving away some prizes, food and drink specials, guaranteed good time. David Quadrelli, Harmon Dial going to host. I understand there's going to be some trivia.
Yes.
Stump Quadrelli, maybe.
I got some questions in the bank here, ready to roll with.
50 West Cordova, Greta. We will see you there this evening. Coming up on the show, Brenton Demko, father to Thatcher. He's on the dad's trip and his first dad's trip. The Canucks, like a lot of other teams, have had some, of course, when COVID came around, it was
kiboshed. Yeah.
Well, there was 1 year we weren't playing in front of audiences, right? So this is actually his first dad's trip. He tells us a little bit about how everybody is getting along, some of their activities. Of course, everybody's with Kuldeep Bains as he watches his son Arshdeep make his National Hockey League debut. So fun interview coming up there. We'll do some hashtags, the best and worst of Twitter. Frankie Corrado will join us, where an angry Canuck fan slid into his LinkedIn.
You got to be really motivated, folks.
Canucks LinkedIn.
Really motivated.
Scary place, that Canucks
LinkedIn. Notorious spot. Canuck LinkedIn.
What level of anger do you have to reach about a hockey game or a hockey team that you're popping off on LinkedIn?
Yeah. Like, what's the next frontier? Like, you're going to get into their MySpace as well? Like, where else are you going?
Gonna send them a registered letter.
Mail. Yeah. Best bets are a presentation of Sports Interaction, your homegrown sports book at casino. I'm going to go to the over on the Oilers because I don't know that they know how to do anything but the over. They hit the over last night with the Bruins.
Fun game.
And the Minnesota Wild have allowed 13 goals in their last 2 games. The over is 6.5. I'm not nervous at all there. Like, to me, it's just fait accompli.
No sweat.
205 for the Oilers to hit the over.
Incidentally, Rob Williams is going to join us on the show today as well. Believe it or not, MLS played a regular season match Wednesday. Miami, Messi. We're back on season 2024 in MLS. Caps don't play this week.
No, next week.
Are they? It looks like a pretty full schedule though on the weekend.
It's a bye week.
A bye week out of the chute for Vanni Sartini's Whitecaps.
Well, they're not his Whitecaps.
Oh, that's right. For game 1, he is
for a little bit.
Seattle Sounders. I realize they may not be what they used to be. That's still a tough place to play. Big crowds usually, kind of damp and chilly. As you know, the first 10, I believe Christian Jack said this to us once. There's a lot of coaches in the MLS that the first 10 games, it's just about feeling out who they got, what works, what doesn't work. They don't get overly concerned about dropped points early in the season.
You don't want to dig a hole.
If you're a good team.
You don't want to dig a hole, but you don't worry about it.
LAFC is a very good team. They're the defending Western Conference champions. And so I'm sitting here looking at getting a home team at 460 early in the season when all sorts of things can happen in MLS. Give me the Sounders in regulation to beat LAFC at 460.
Sure. I like it. Sports Interaction, your homegrown sports book and casino, custom props and parlays, speaking directly to a Vancouver fan. Scan the code, get a 200% welcome bonus from Sekeres Price. It's Sports Interaction. Bet local, must be 19 years of age. Please play responsibly. If you don't have tickets for a big game at the rink, go to Greta Bar, 50 West Cordova Street, and you can soak up the atmosphere, whether you have tickets and are walking to and from the rink or not. It's a great place to catch the game. And for road games, of course, like February the 22nd, cheer them on at Greta Bar. Spend $10 on a ticket at nationgear.ca. Proceeds from the night with Canuck Army and Sekeres Price. Go to Canuck Place Children's Hospice. We'd love to see you there. February 22nd, Greta Bar, 50 West Cordova.
Well, Blake, 4 years ago, January, before the world changed, shut down.
Yeah.
We had an opportunity to spend a week in San Diego, California at Whitecaps training camp. And we were organizing guests with local ties to San Diego. We said, Thatcher Demko's from San Diego. Well, next thing we know, his dad, Brenton Demko, is driving out to our hotel to sit down and do an interview with us poolside, as I recall.
To talk about a young goaltender, burgeoning goaltender, yes.
And he's on the dad's trip with the Canucks, and Brenton Demko joins us from Seattle. How you doing, Brenton? Good to see you again.
I'm doing well. Good to see you guys.
Your first dad's trip.
Yes.
Explain.
Well, like we were just chatting briefly, due to COVID and, some other issues, there has not been one since Thatch has been with the Canucks. And so, this year they've organized it. And, when Thatch called with the news, I was pretty thrilled. Just having an absolute blast.
It's a shared experience in a lot of ways, isn't it? Being a hockey dad, there's probably just a lot of commonalities. Guys telling stories on this trip that you're like, yeah, that happened to us too. And that's it must be a little affirming just to know that everybody's sort of been in the same boat over the last couple of decades.
No, absolutely. And it's interesting to hear because, I still get nervous during games, and it's great to hear that other dads also are still getting nervous during games. And so, but you're right, a lot of similar stories. I don't think that I've heard one that I haven't heard before, either through personal experience or just knowing other hockey dads. And so there is quite a bit of commonality.
I sit beside goalie dads all the time. Did last night, in fact, watching my daughter's game, and it's that extra bit of nerves, at least at the minor hockey level. When your son's an all-star, do some of the nerves go away? Like he's good, he can do it, or is it still kind of the same as it always has been?
It's always the same as it has been.
Yeah.
I thought it would start waning a little bit, but no, unfortunately not.
Brenton, tell us about your experiences there with all the dads. Like, do they have an itinerary for you? Are you guys on your own? Like, describe how the mechanics of this works day to day.
No, there is an itinerary. Yesterday it was a team day off, and they organized an event out at a Top Golf thing where we all got to smack some balls around and just kind of socialize and get to know the other dads a little bit better. And other than that, it's like this morning we're heading off to the team morning skate here in a little bit. And so they've done a very good job on organizing events to kind of keep us in the mix and truly experience what the team goes through on a day-by-day basis while they're on the road.
Who have you been sitting beside watching the games with?
I hate to admit this, but I sat by myself because
goalie dad.
Yeah, I think it was Mr. Bluger was sitting maybe one seat over from me, but I was kind of in my one chair, just chewing my gum and doing my thing. So
yeah. Poor Mr. DeSmith. Did he require some consoling in Minnesota?
No, I mean, that's the thing with goalie parents. I mean, we understand there's games that happen like that. And, I was even talking to Thatch about it. And, at certain points, games like that just kind of take on a life of their own.
They really do.
And as a goalie, it just reaches a point where you just have to go out there and chuckle about it and just pretend you're at shinny or something and just, get through that. And so we did briefly talk about it, but it was no big issue.
I don't know that the dad's trips or the mentors trips have always got a juggernaut game. But you guys stepped into one in Denver, especially with that Minnesota game sort of as the backstory. That game felt like there was something on the line. I think both teams took it that way too.
Yeah, I was very interested to see how that was going to play out because of the travel, the altitude. The game the day before, and it felt like a playoff game. And I know that's a cliche term that people start throwing around this time of year, but I mean, the electricity in the arena was just off the charts. And I thought that both teams played extraordinarily well. I would love to see that matchup at some point in the future.
Yeah, hopefully with a Stanley Cup berth on the line, perhaps, huh?
Yeah, possibly.
Tell us about Kuldeep Bains. You had a heartfelt post and a photo with the two of you watching the game the other night as Arshdeep made his NHL debut.
Yeah, it was brought back a lot of memories from when, we flew up to Vancouver to watch Thatch play in his debut against Columbus 4 or 5 years ago, whatever that was now. And I just remember how nervous I was that game. And the dad that just happened to be in town was Tim Horvat. And, Tim kind of took me aside for a second and just checked in on me to see how I was doing with my nerves. So I was able to do that with Kuldeep. I had met him in the team room before we went to the game. We were just kind of saying, hey, is tonight going to be the night? I have a good feeling tonight's going to be the night. And then when he came out and did his lap, I just had to go over and share a couple words with Kuldeep just because I'd been there 5 years ago, I think it's now been. And it was just good to share that experience with him.
And with such a good performance, I'm sure all of you were sort of giving Kuldeep a pat on the back there because it was a job well done by his son, wasn't it?
Well, imagine this. So he's on the road in his first NHL game, and he's lined up opposite of Mikko Rantanen with McKinnon and Drouin and Makar. on that line for his first shift in the NHL.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
Memorable stuff.
Yeah.
Well, but also he's watching it with a bunch of people who he really has just gotten to know in the days and hours beforehand, knowing full well the camera may be on me at certain times.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, no, he was great. And I just think that he really had the opportunity to soak it in. I'm sure perfect world, maybe he would have been great to be surrounded by family and friends that he's been with, all through Arshdeep's career up to this point. But it was awesome. I just was really, really grateful that I was able to share that moment with him.
Dakota Joshua's brother, Brock Besser's brother, are on the trip, or the dad's keeping up with the Young Bucks?
Yeah, he was Brock and his brother Paul were in my golf little group yesterday, so I got to know Paul a little bit yesterday and had some friendly competition with him on the golf simulator thing, and I was able to talk to Dakota's brother for a little bit as well. But no, they're great. They're fitting in right with the group, and it's great to have them on board as well.
Hey, last time we talked to you, California hockey, it's coming, man. It's coming.
Yeah, it's I've been a little bit out of the loop lately, and part of that is it's unfortunate, but the rink that Thatch grew up playing a lot of his youth hockey in has closed down, and so San Diego specifically, we lost 2 sheets of ice. But the good news, I guess, is that the Anaheim Junior Ducks program has kind of folded. I don't want to say folded in the Junior Gulls program, but they manage one of the rinks now here down in San Diego. And so some of the numbers of youth participation in San Diego specifically have dropped, but a lot of those kids, when they need the AAA experience, they're still able to get up to Anaheim and LA. And I think it's just going to continue to grow. Hopefully somebody will come in and put another rink in San Diego, because there is a demand, and it's just one of those things that I don't know the specific ins and outs as to why that rink closed, but I don't think it's ever been stronger. The Kings are doing okay this year. The Ducks hopefully will start turning around a little bit, because that always seems to, when those two teams have the intense rivalry, always seems to build the interest as it goes. And so right now, I'd say from an NHL standpoint, maybe the California teams aren't doing great, but there's still the desire there and the interest level at the grassroots level for sure.
Yeah, I was talking developmentally. In fact, there's a kid, Trevor Connolly. He's spent some time with the San Diego Gulls from Tustin, California. He'll be a first-round pick this year.
Shortly after we chatted with you, the bubble experience was given to Thatcher, and that went about as well as we could have expected. They went on a storybook run, but of course, that wasn't in front of fans, wasn't in Vancouver. Is Thatch shared anything with you about his excitement about playoff hockey in Vancouver with fans and what that might be like for him this year?
Yeah, I think it's it's the goal every year, and you guys know that, because we talk about it every year, and the first hurdle, I guess, is done, and that was getting out of the gate strong, and that was the team mentality. Thatch and I think the entire team was in town early this year because they wanted to continue the standards that they had started to set at the end of last year. And now that you've got over that hump, and okay, we came out of the gate strong, and then everybody was expecting the Canucks to drop off, and that didn't happen. And now you're facing the playoffs, and the fact that yes, we have a legitimate shot of getting there and being able to play in front of our fans. I mean, we've talked briefly about it. It's Thatch likes to stay in the moment, and
there's no X beside the name just yet, so I understand that. Yeah,
right. Yeah. And so, but we have had minor chats about it, and so I know that the excitement is there, but the team truly is focused just on tonight's game, and then after tonight's over, the focus on the Bruins on Saturday. So it's a testament to the coaching staff as well. I was fortunate, they've introduced themselves. They've been very gracious. I've talked to Patrick Alvin a couple times. I actually just met Ian Clark for the first time this morning.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's been great. And I think that the team from the coaching staff down truly has the right mindset heading into this final stretch run.
Hey, Brenton, Thatcher's a Vezina candidate this year, first goaltender to 30 wins. Compare and contrast a little bit, this year and the feeling and the enjoyment compared to last year when sadly he's injured for most of the year and really didn't find his game till late.
I think the health component to it has just been huge. And, especially for Thatch when his body doesn't, I guess, keep up with the rest of what he's trying to achieve. That's just the worst feeling for any athlete, I think, because that you've got the ability, you've got the desire to go out there and be better every day and contribute. And when you physically can't do that, that just takes such a toll on you mentally. And so, Thatch worked with his people and took the time to really get mentally stronger, physically stronger. I don't think he's ever been in better shape. And so, he's seeing the fruits of that and being able to look back of some of the dark times from last year and saying, yeah, okay, I had to go through that just given my circumstance, and make sure that he used that downtime in the right way. I mean, the proof's in the pudding, and it is a lot more fun going to the rink when you're able to compete at the level that you can.
Yeah.
You guys aren't done in Seattle, are you? Is everybody coming back for the Bruins game? I mean, it's hard to, draw a finish line because I'm sure it's fun and all that, but tell me you guys are coming back for the Bruins game.
Well, I think they're flying us to Vancouver, but I think that's when the dad trip ends.
Yeah.
I personally am staying through Monday because I do want to see the Bruins game, but I'm also wanting to visit with my grandson.
Very nice.
Well, enjoy that time, and let's hope they get you and the dads a win here in Seattle.
I'm cheering along those same lines for sure.
Best Great stuff, Brenton. Thanks for this. Great catching up with you. Be well.
No problem. Take care. Thanks.
Great Clips is the official hair salon of the National Hockey League. There are 37 salons in Vancouver and the Lower Mainland, all Canadian owned and operated. Download the app and find the nearest to you. When you're up next for a cut, you'll get a ready next text. Great Clips. It's going to be great. Former Vancouver Canuck and TSN hockey analyst Frank Corrado likes to say that Canucks Twitter is undefeated, but perhaps we need to expand beyond just the Twitter platform, Frankie.
Listen, I got all the time in the world for Canucks Twitter, Canucks fans. What I don't have time for is in a very professional setting like LinkedIn. I don't need a message on LinkedIn where you come at me all pissed off that I said that the Canucks couldn't handle the physical Winnipeg Jets on a Saturday night. And if you saw my hit with Jay Onrait the next day, I said that I felt like Vancouver got running around in that game, and that opened up some ice for Winnipeg, and they were too focused on winning the physical battle instead of winning the game. And I've never seen this before, but I got a message on LinkedIn. First of all, I accepted the guy because I just accept everyone on LinkedIn. I just assume, let connect.
They want to make a deal. They want to make a deal. Yeah.
These are professional people.
After, I see my phone pop up, and it's some dummy all pissed off saying that I'm biased. I played for the Canucks, but I'm biased towards the Jets.
Right.
Get out of here on LinkedIn. Get a life, LinkedIn.
You're biased against the team that you played for, but not. Yeah, I'm not following. Okay.
LinkedIn.
Well,
okay. If this is my Instagram picture, okay, with the two gone, my LinkedIn picture's got to be like, very prim and proper, suit and tie. Like,
yes, yeah,
this is ridiculous.
Time and place. And not to mention what your take is pretty much the take of everybody after that game. As Juleson chases the hit, allows everybody was saying that. So
yeah,
no, but what I'm thinking about with this is homeboy was probably, you know what? I'm going to go after them on LinkedIn. Yeah. Everybody goes after them on Twitter. I'm going to go and put out these. Exactly.
Yeah, it's a sneak attack. Yeah.
It's a Trojan horse.
Yeah.
You know what LinkedIn is filled with? People saying, hey, so-and-so would love to see if there's some synergy between our two brands. Why don't we hop on a call? And mixed into that was, I can't believe how biased you are.
Yeah.
Take a hike.
Now, would
Let's
you
talk
like to
about
invest in my
synergy.
Bitcoin company?
Exactly. Oh my god.
Oh,
Congratulations
man.
on your work anniversary.
Yeah, exactly.
Congrats on the new role.
Oh
It's
my
so
gosh.
fake. Like, people do not talk like that in real life.
No kidding.
Okay, have I got a deal for you though, Frank Corrado? What'd you make of the bounce back after a game that can not really be described versus the Minnesota Wild? Do you believe in moral victories for a first place
Why
team
are you doing this?
as they go toe
You're
to
just
toe
baiting me.
with
You're
the
just
Avs?
waving the red meat in front of my face.
What'd you think of the effort?
Moral victories. Okay, like, it's great to have bounce back performances, and it's such a delicate thing, I find, in a regular season where a team can go on a slide. You don't bounce back from it for a long time. So at least you do it sooner rather than later. But that was crazy. Like, for lack of a better term, no pun intended, that was wild. I don't know. Like, I don't know how to describe what we saw in that game. It was truly one of the most bizarre displays of hockey. But listen, it's a long year. Okay, it's 82 games. There's ups and downs. There's days you go to the rink, you feel like crap. There's days you go to the rink and you just don't have it. So yes, there is something to be said internally within the group where it's like, we kind of know leaving the rink that we gave it an honest effort and that was a good game. And you can justify that kind of stuff. Like, the players, coaches always kind of say that if we're going to lose a game, let's lose a game where we actually played pretty well. Like, the other team actually beat us. And that's going to happen. And I thought that's what would happen with the Canucks against Colorado.
Alain Vigneault used to always say at the end of a winning streak, you're playing bad and winning. And at the end of a losing streak, you're playing well and losing. So tonight, versus the Kraken, I would say, you'd want to see that continuation though, right? You'd want to see that another good game to lead you to believe that the wins are not too far on the corner if it's not tonight at all.
Yes, exactly. And I saw you guys, the poll question today, like, is it a must win? I wouldn't say it's a must win, but in order for, like, the group to kind of believe in things here, like, which they should, and they absolutely should, but it's almost like one of those things where within the group, we're not messing around because we've lost some games now in a row, and you've basically, like, you've seen what the spiral can be at times, although this year it hasn't really happened. Like, let's right the ship, and the best way to do that is to get a win. And so while it's not technically a must win, I think there's going to be a lot of urgency. Like, I sense there's going to be a heightened sense of urgency in this game, and I would imagine, like, less mistakes, a little more tighter defensively, a little more onus on, hey, let's make sure we block that shot, like all that kind of stuff, because it is good to have little moments in the season where you get tested, by the schedule or the teams or even your coach. Like, your coach is going to throw that out there and walk in the room and say, guys, this is a very good challenge for us today, where we played better, we didn't get the results. Like, let's do it for ourselves here to kind of know that we can turn things around as quick as possible. And that's what I would expect from the Canucks.
We have to let you in on the joke, though. The must-win poll question, our old colleague Dave Pratt, who you were a Canuck when Dave Pratt was on the
I remember
air.
the name.
Yeah. So Dave, Big Daddy, used to break out the must-win in late October.
Yeah, this is tasteful. This is downright tasteful.
Remembrance Day. So we're having some fun with that today. Speaking of fun, the dad's trip. And we were talking to Brenton Demko on today's show, Thatcher's dad. Did Big Sal get on a dad's trip, your father, at one point?
Two of them, one with the Canucks and one with the Leafs. You guys want to hear a great dad's trip story?
Please.
Oh, man, this is a doozy. I got to set the scene for you. So this is in Vancouver. We're doing the dad's trip in Chicago and Minnesota.
Yeah.
And they treat us so well. Like, it was, first class experience. All the dads are really enjoying it. Think about all the sacrifice these guys, have and go through to get us to that level. And so I'm hurt at the time. So I'm not playing. So I'm hanging out with the dads up in the booth. And I'm sitting on one of the couches in the suite during the game because it's just tight in there. Like there's not enough seats for everyone. So some guys are kind of taking shifts, going to the seats, to watching on the TV, whatever. Underneath the TV is all the food stationed, right? And me and my dad are sitting there, we're watching the TV. There's another father next to us. There's a very prominent figure in the Vancouver Canucks organization, very, very high up. And he is situated standing where the food is, blocking the TV. Now, another father says to that gentleman, "Excuse me, can you please get out of the way? We're trying to watch the game." Something along those lines. I'm not going to tell you whose father it was, but I will say that person may have been paying for the whole shindig. And my dad and I, we laugh, like we still laugh about that to this day. That like that was the big cheese, and he was standing in front of the TV, and this other father had no idea.
Oh no, no idea. He wasn't
no
just
idea,
bold. He just was
no idea. Like didn't know it. Like get like out of the way, please. Trying to watch the game, and did not realize who he was talking to, and it was the craziest. My dad and I were beside ourselves. And like no one really saw it except us. And like the amount that we laughed the rest of the day, the rest of the trip, we couldn't believe it.
What was the look on the aggrieved face when the request was made? Disbelief?
It was a little bit of like, okay. And then just kind of like moved out of the way, like very polite, like very,
Didn't make
very
a scene.
polite about it all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who put this thing together? Me. That's who.
Like it was like, all right, I'll move, but oh man, it was something. It was something.
Hey, you have told us in the past you go way back with Phil DiGiuseppe, and I know you're amused watching his dad, Luciano DiGiuseppe, watch the game in the box the other night.
It was great. It was great to see. They showed the booth, and you see Luch. And so Phil and I played minor hockey together, and Luch's got a great mustache. It's original. It's still there, but it didn't matter how bad you played. And, some parents can be really hard on their kids, or like you'd come out from the dressing room carrying your hockey bag. There was Luch, fist bump, great game, buddy. Like the most positive guy
nice.
ever. Yeah, very, very nice. You could have had the worst game. You could have had like 3 giveaways, fist bump, pat on the back. It's okay, buddy. It's all good. You go, you get back after it next game. Like just the nicest gentleman ever.
What'd you make of the Baines reaction? Arshdeep makes his debut. I'm sure it gives you the feels to think back to those moments when you see a dad and a son enjoying that kind of a night.
For sure. And listen, everyone's first NHL game means a lot. I think there was a lot behind his first NHL game, just because like
different
from
path.
Surrey, undrafted, like the demographic that he represents. Like I think there's a lot of power behind that. And kudos to him, man. Like he did it. Like he's done it the hard way. He's had to prove himself every step along the way. And he finally gets the opportunity. I thought he looked really good. Like I thought it was a very good showing in a very difficult circumstance. You're playing at altitude in Colorado, which is hard for veterans, never mind someone playing their first game. I thought he made some good plays with the puck. He wasn't afraid to kind of bring the puck into the middle of the ice. Like all the things that, you kind of think make him a good player at the AHL level. He's having so much success there. He basically did at the, in his first game. So I think that was awesome. And just, to see the reactions from that community and just how much it means, it's very cool. And obviously, with Vancouver, there's Surrey, like there's just a big population that he represents. And I think it was so cool that he was able to do it for his hometown team. Pretty amazing story.
The key at the NHL level is consistency, obviously, but it's not like he scored 2. If he scored 2, or you're not expecting that out of him every single night. You wouldn't expect him to replicate that, but the way he played is kind of what we thought his game is. Like maybe that is doable on a more nightly basis for Arshdeep Baines.
Well, I mean, listen, you go up to the NHL, you're riding on adrenaline early on, and you're not thinking, you're naive to things, like it's just very instinctual. Then it becomes a grind, And at some point, like if you stay up long enough, that becomes the biggest hurdle. We've been talking about Quentin Byfield all week because he scores that great goal against Columbus, and he's having such a big season. And one of the points that I think is worth noting out with Byfield and how he's really arrived this year, and it's maybe taken him a little while. There's obviously a few reasons why that's the case. Like you could say COVID kind of taken away some of his junior hockey, may have stunted development. Sometimes it just, you have all the skill and you have all the tools, you just can't put it together. Part of the reason that is you play junior hockey, you play in the AHL, you basically play on Fridays, Saturdays, you sprinkle in the odd Wednesdays, and you get some Sunday games. So as far as managing your season goes, that your kind of down days are early in the week. You ramp it up, you play your games, you have a day off, you kind of do the same thing. It's a reset, and you ramp it up again. And it's that over and over and over again. The NHL does not allow you to do that. You play Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, sometimes Sunday. You're playing, you don't have the time to kind of like ease into the week and ramp things up. So, you start playing games here fast and furious, and you're like, I have no confidence, and I have 4 games in 6 days, and I'm screwed. And, that's the reality. And, for young players, that's one of the biggest hurdles to overcome that kind of doesn't really get talked about unless you've really been through that grind. And I know myself, like I struggled with that, and there's other players that do, but for a young player, OHL or WHL, AHL, like it's pretty straightforward. You get to the NHL, it's not that easy.
You're in Pittsburgh doing the Habs Penguins game. We got into this with Saravelli last week, and you might have some insight on this as a former Penguin and teammate. Can you ever see a day where Sidney puts on a different sweater?
I don't. I think he's so deeply embedded in the team fabric, the community fabric, to the extent that Mario was here. And I think you look at that kind of mentorship where he comes into the league, lives with Mario. They've obviously remained very close over the years. Like, I would imagine his legacy is going to follow in the same footsteps. And I just can't imagine a world where Crosby's not a Penguin. He's got a lot of game left. And maybe that's the enticing thing where it's like, man, what if he could go have an opportunity to win? But it's not Ray Bourque. It's not a Ginla. Like he's won 3 Stanley Cups here. He's done everything he possibly can. Those guys were chasing cups. And that's not to say that Sid's not highly competitive, because he is, but I just can't, having been here and seen it up close and personal, I can't imagine he's not a Penguin. And Kyle Dubas spoke to the media yesterday. He addressed the media, and basically what he said was, team needs to get younger here. And we think that if we keep players like Sid and Malkin and Letang and Erik Karlsson around, we can bring some young players and reinvigorate them and kind of retool this thing on the fly with some young players. So with that thought process in mind, I don't see how you're moving on from him.
You say reinvigorate. I mean, he's 31 goals, 55 points.
Well, he doesn't need to reinvigorate.
Playing more than 20 minutes a night still at age 36. He don't need any of that.
You want to hear something crazy? I was just getting – so these are my sheets I do for the games. Okay, so that's my Montreal one. This is my Pittsburgh one. All right, Pittsburgh, 25th in the NHL in goals for, 4th in the NHL in goals against, and they have the 4th best save percentage in the NHL. Defensively, this is a playoff team all day long. All day long. Their power play is terrible. It's 30th. And their expected goals are top 3 in the NHL. So expected goals are top 3, actual goals 25th. It is insane. Like, no one can figure out what is going on here as far as the power play is terrible, and that's been a big contributor to it. But even here's another one for you. They've allowed 3 goals or less in 10 of their last 13 games. Are you kidding me? And you know what they are? They're
a real simple red. A real simple red
flag
flag for me is always the goal differential. If you've got a good goal differential and you're among all the bad goal differentials, there's something wrong. And they are 6th in the wild card standings, but they have a plus 11 goal differential, which is just fine. The team above them's a minus 32. The teams below them are minus 42, and there's a plus 11 in amongst all those teams. It doesn't make any sense.
Delta's Tristan Jarry.
Like, they got to study this. They should study this team and what's gone on here, because no one can figure it out.
So is your old boss Kyle Dubas going to give you the scoop on the Jake Gensel trade?
I actually just texted him. I was like, you got to give me. No, I don't think so. I don't want to get into the insider game. That's
no,
you know, that's heavy lifting. That's hard work. You'll have people sliding in your LinkedIn and. Yeah, I don't like pestering people either. I like to leave people be. So I don't like to be a nuisance.
Do you have a Yager wig? Did you wind up getting did they have any leftover Yager wigs from Yager weekend? No,
but do you remember there was a game Yager played when he was on Florida where he played against the Leafs, and he had more points himself than our entire combined roster, and I was a part of that game. And that graphic, I'll send it to you guys, but that graphic lives on.
Excellent.
It's yeah.
Well, Frankie, gotta say, great synergy here, buddy. Let's hop on a call and do it again next week.
Let's do a Zoom next week and see if we can put some of these details together.
Hit me up on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of connectivity and great synergies, and I really am excited about where our brands can go. So,
absolutely.
Your KPIs are impressive. Real good KPIs.
Very good.
See you guys.
Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.